What's the creepiest thing that's happened to you at work? Posted one day ago. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I worked a day job, a night job, and I was in college, so my sleep schedule was really effed up for several months. One night, I was working alone. I did my work and had a few hours of downtime, so I tried taking a nap. I woke up to what sounded like someone inside the building screaming nonsensically and smashing things, like some psycho broke in and was tearing up the room. I ran to where the sound was coming from, and by then it stopped. I didn't see anything weird inside the room. Everything was perfectly normal. I yelled, "What the was that?" My own voice came out very slow and deep, like when you try talking through a yawn. "What's going on?" Same thing. I looked around the other rooms and even outside. Nothing was out of order. I'm confident it was a hallucination due to lack of sleep. After that, I took steps to sort my life out so I could sleep like normal again, and I haven't had any more experiences like that. I'm a nurse on a ward for 33 Alzheimer's patients. During a quiet night shift, I was reading something at the nurse's post in the middle of the central hallway. It was the middle of the night, around 3 or 4, so even the restless patients were asleep. The lights were dimmed, and I was in ADHD hyperfocus reading my book. All of a sudden, I hear a faint children's voice singing a nursery rhyme, "Alle Endes zwennen in hell water," or "All the ducks are swimming in the water." No music, nothing was to be heard except this little child's voice singing this song in the dead of night. I checked the hallway, left and right, nothing to see and not really clear where the singing is coming from exactly. So I get my broad-shouldered 1.83 meter male body out of the nurse station and start walking around the ward, searching for this creepy sound. I can't find it, and I'm starting to wonder if we really are living in a virtual reality world, and today is the day TV horror becomes real. And then I find it. We have a certain device that projects several touch games on a white surface table called the Toratuffel, or Magic Table. This device received maintenance that afternoon, and as a courtesy, the company activated all available games, one of them including a girl singing nursery rhymes to sing along with. I was a bank manager years ago. I was opening one morning, and when I went to open the front door, it was already unlocked and open. I asked the teller with me to get her phone out and to be ready to call 911. I opened the door and yelled, "Hello?" A little old man came out from around a corner with papers in his hand and said, "Can I make a deposit?" I told him we weren't open yet and asked him to step outside. We called police to ask them to come check the building with us. Turns out that our cleaners left the previous night without locking the door or setting the alarm. The branch was unlocked and free and clear for anyone to come in and wander around all night. Okay, I have a good story for this. I work at a thrift store, and the majority of our customers are senior citizens. I'm fairly used to customers asking what certain things in the store are used for. A few months back, this old woman, around her 70s or 80s, comes up to me holding a knife sharpener and asks me if I know what it's used for. I start explaining to her what it is and how to use it, but she interrupts me and says, "I know how to use it. I'm asking if you know how to use it." I'm a little confused at this point, but I nod and say that I know how to use a knife sharpener. She nods, closes her eyes, and says, "Sharp knives are good. You're going to need one soon." And she walked off. To this day, that encounter creeps the hell out of me. Whoa. I open and close my office, so I'm the first in and last out. Came in one morning, unlocked the front door, swiped my pass for the second set of doors, and the alarm didn't go off. Already deactivated. That's weird. All the lights were off, so the basement light shining under the door in the lobby was pretty obvious. That's weird too. We never leave it on. Heard some strange noises down there, so I had to go investigate. It's 3 lights to reach the basement. You can't see the top from the bottom. As soon as I stepped off the bottom step, I heard a noise and paused to listen. I realized the noise I heard was someone opening the door above me. Lights turned off, door slammed shut. My mind was racing. Did someone break in? Was I just tricked? Turns out, our maintenance guy came in early for some burner maintenance. The weird sound I heard was the automatic reprime cycle. He put his tools away, then came back to turn off the light. I used to work as a tour guide for a ghost tour company. Basically, I walked people through the city, stopped at important landmarks and told gruesome stories about what happened, and then reported hauntings. Creepy things would happen, like guests seeing faces peering out of windows, or them telling me they could see lights floating in windows. It was always the same window, and multiple guests from multiple tours over a 2-year period reported seeing them. Creepiest thing that happened to me while working was my last day. I was standing in front of the door to a house with plenty of ghost stories. This was also the house with the lights. At the end of my story, I thanked the guests and told them that this would be my final tour with the company. Everyone clapped, and I started to make my way down the steps. As I started to walk, I heard a voice whisper behind me. Before I could turn around to look, I felt a pair of hands shove me from behind, and I went ass over tea kettle down the stairs. Luckily, one of the guests caught me as I was falling. Some of the guests assumed that me falling down the stairs and saying I felt pushed with no one behind me was part of the tour. I found a note on my workstation that read, "You are incredibly beautiful." Nothing too bad and nothing threatening. I got into my coworker's car later to get a ride home and started talking to him about it. I laughed and made fun of the anonymous writer because I'd always made it known that I was off the market to my now husband. My coworker wanted nothing to do with the conversation and had even become visibly upset. Turns out, not only was it him, but he had been in trouble for stalking a different female coworker. He would show up to wherever she was outside of work after he'd agreed to drive her home and would drive by her house to see if she was home. Was working alone in the middle of the night at a huge warehouse near a port on a foggy night when I see the outline of a man in the distance. Scared the shit out of me. The man walked directly towards me as I was still on my forklift. He comes up to the loading dock and gives a toothless smile as he asked where the lot lizards were at, pointed him down the road to the Love's truck stop, and he excitedly went on his way. I worked at a preschool, and my coworker came into my classroom to help keep me in ratio since my assistant teacher had called out. Kids were off playing. I was in the kitchen area. Coworker walks over to me and whips his dick out, asking me if I had breakfast yet or if I was hungry for some of his sausage. Found a pic of me on the printer. The original picture included me and my spouse, but the version had him cropped out and was zoomed in a way where I could only think of it having a single purpose. What made it extra creepy is that I had removed that picture from my social media account years ago, and it didn't exist anywhere else online, so the person must have saved it on their computer for quite a while. I had a tiny t-shirt shop in a mall when I was young. One day a girl came in at lunch and was at first like a normal customer. She was flirting on me way more than as usual. She hung on to my every word. She stayed most of the afternoon. She had just gotten a job at an army recruiter's, and they locked her out of the office at lunch with no way to get back in. I finally got rid of her for a few hours by sending her on an errand. When she came back, I had friends around and asked them to stick around because something was off. They all agreed that she gave off a weird vibe. The next day she came around, same thing, and she told me that she was molested by her father and that she was given a job and an apartment as an emergency to get her away from him. Thanks to my friends hanging around, I wanted to not be anywhere alone with this girl. I didn't see her again. A few days later, a guy shows up in the morning asking about her. He says that he heard she was seen at my shop and that he just wants to marry her off to whoever she is with. He was creepy as F. The guy spent 13 hours outside my store, watching like a hawk. Night shift working at a small boutique hotel that had previously been a very shady truck stop style motel, AIDS hospice, and generally unseemly place. During the night shift, the only people on staff were myself and the bartenders who worked the other side of the property. The front desk and lobby where I worked were carved out of a couple of rooms in the largest of the property's buildings. The back office area was a room that opened directly into the lobby, and then through a door in the back was a small room with a desk and a bathroom in it. That night, the front desk area, which always was cold, kept heating up with this hot, stuffy air. The AC unit was right outside the office door, and I could hear it running. The temperature gauge in the room read in the low 70s, and when I checked the vents, it felt like it was blowing cool, but every once in a while the hot air would pass through the room. I wasn't too bothered, since ACs act up all the time, and there was an old attic above the rooms that might trap heat, so I just brushed it off. But as the night went on, I started to get really strong feelings of uneasiness. Going in and out of the smaller room with the bathroom, I'd feel like someone was right behind me. I'd turn around and of course nothing would be there. By the end of my shift, I felt completely unnerved. Between the blasts of heat and the feeling of being watched all night, I couldn't get out of the office fast enough. The next day when I came into work, I asked my boss if anything weird ever happened in the lobby area. Without skipping a beat, he said, "Oh yeah, There was a fire in here when this place was still a motel. The manager's room was the back room, and one night he was smoking in bed, fell asleep, and the bed caught on fire. He didn't get out, and ended up dying in the fire in the room. They merged the rooms into this office when they did renovations to repair it. And that's how I learned how the hotel was haunted. This happened to me about 3 years ago when I was working in an advertising agency. I was working very late that night. It was probably close to 3 a.m., and as far as I could tell, probably the only one there at the time. If you were to walk into my department, you would see what is essentially a long and wide hallway with tall wooden cupboard desks on the left and right. The left would have 4 desks where the directors or seniors would sit, while the right would have about 8 desks arranged to create a cubicle space for the juniors. This arrangement is repeated 4 times along the hallway, essentially creating 4 segments of space, which belong to a different team or brand. This also naturally creates an aisle walkway right through the middle. I have an aisle seat on the 3rd section, so when I sit down, I can't see directly in front of me because it's the tall cupboard desk thing. But leaning to the side, I can basically see the whole length of the hallway with a clear view of the desks in the 1st section. The 1st section belonged to a milk brand, so that the top of their cupboards were stacked with many samples of milk cartons of different designs. So that night, as I was the only one there, only my section was lit with the ceiling fan on. I was typing emails and was already feeling uneasy with how dark the whole office is, and the fact that it's effing 3 a.m., also known as the witching hour. And it didn't help that my brain was reminding me of all the office horror stories my colleagues have shared over the years, like how this building was built over a damned graveyard. And suddenly, I hear a clattering of items, and I immediately peeked my head only to see down the hallway that nearly all the milk cartons at the 1st section had fallen. Looked up, ceiling fan was off. Mind you, there's no way the airflow from my section caused that, because the space between our section is very big. So if that wasn't a sign telling me to GTFO the office now, then I don't know what was. Slammed my laptop shut, shoved it in my bag, and went straight home. When I, male, was 16, working in a movie theater, my boss, female, was 30 or so, and came onto me pretty hard after work. She eventually got what she wanted. I thought it was cool at first, but as I grew older, I realized it wasn't. Next job a year later, I was 17, working at Blockbuster Video, shout out. My manager was a middle-aged guy, and he would play porn on the TVs while we were closing down the store. I didn't think much about it at the time, but now that I'm older, I see that as creepy as hell, seeing that several non-adults work there besides me. My much older male coworker kept staring at me, and I tried ignoring him, but he came really close to me, so I asked him what's up. He asked me, "Why do you have on a pink mask? The plain ones are fine." So I laughed a little bit and said, "Oh, I have it because I think it's pretty." Somehow, that led to him telling me, sotto voice, "You think you're so smart, huh? Someday you'll fall from that high horse of yours, and I will enjoy watching you on the way down. It's no good being this stuck up." It chilled me to the bone. I have zero idea what he has against me, but I want to cry every time I have to talk to him. He keeps staring at me and coming uncomfortably close and saying vaguely threatening and sexual remarks. Why don't you report him? Because this happened in front of multiple people and they all laughed, and he has seniority, and I only have the drive to last a while longer at this job.